Or the uphill. Keep him clean
Absolutely. And it's really vital, you know, because
I like that house.
Check out Prashant's.
Yes, Svetlana.
So this is all quiet.
I'm sort of open to pretty much anything on my own. Well, I'm definitely open to something.
If you ever change your mind about leaving me behind, directions if you look at me on home. If you ever change your mind.
Do you have a sense of anticipation building within you?
Yeah, that would be nice.
My name is Aya, I'm a Vietnamese, and I have a very, very simple MC job tonight. I'm literally just going to be saying ages and years, and then people's names, which is as simple as I like it. So I am just going to, as we go through this tapestry of Vivian's life.
turn it up a little bit, please.
Yes, please.
Love to. How do I turn it up, guys? Time period. So for 0 to 8, years of 1943 to 1951, the expert on herself, Vivian.
Who else was there? Not us yet.
Not yet.
Wendy was there.
No, Wendy wasn't.
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you.
Mike.
Is that better? No. I'm not good.
Really writing close to
Oh, I can hear a dog.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight, especially those who have flown up from Sydney. That is my cousin Michelle, and my two friends Georgina and Kathy. I've only known Georgina 72 years and Kathy for 63. I can't quite believe that I've reached the grand age of 80, and I don't often feel it, but sometimes I really do, and you will too. I feel I've lived a rich and varied life, and as many here may not know one another, or only a small part of my life, I've called on some of you to create a patchwork of my life. Thank you so much for those who are contributing to this, and I've divided my life into chronological orders as Aya explained, and my niece Aya will call you up at the beginning of each section. Enjoy.
Austria.
Vienna.
Okay, I was born in Sydney.
Oh.
Into the mic.
From Vienna. I grew up in Bondi, and to go to school, I'd go through the backyard of Mrs. Ford's, down to the rocks. I'd tie the shoelaces of my shoes together, sling them back over my neck, and go through the bogey pool, through the sand, up to Bondi Beach Public School.
Wow.
That's the way I got to school every day. At age 5, my maternal grandparents arrived from Vienna via England and moved in with us. I spent ages exploring the rock pools with my grandpa. That was our favourite pastime. At 5.5, my sister Wendy was born, and we bought our first car, a Morris Minor called Molly, which many years later I learnt to drive on. Long stick, wobbly thing. At age 8, the family moved to Vaucluse, and I enrolled at Rose Bay Public School, where I met Georgina Joan Dingle.
I really hope that one day I can say that I've maintained a friendship for 73 years. That's amazing. Next period of time is ages 8 to 18 years, and we're going to have the aforementioned Georgina speaking and then Vivian's sister Wendy.
You have to help us as you are up these steps. As with most things in my life, everything's just a bit too high for me. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Nice
well
value.
now Vivian's taken my opening line, and I, as she told you, for 72 years we've known each other, and I think that just might qualify for a Guinness Book of Records entry. So she said after spending the first 3 years of her schooling at Bondi, she transferred to Rose Bay. When her family moved to Vaucluse, Vivian was 8, so I guess we entered 3rd class together. I'd been at Rose Bay since kindergarten, so I was an old girl, and Vivian was just but a newbie. I really don't remember how I reacted to this kid's arrival, but Vivian was a well-behaved, obedient child, a bit of a goody-goody actually, and according to my mother, I certainly was not. But we must have bonded on some ground, because then, from then on, Vivian became part of my life's experience. We lived sufficiently close so that I could ride my bike to Vivian's place after school and on weekends. She lived close to the cemetery and the cliffs. The cemetery was a very exciting place to visit. We picked flowers. I think we actually stole the flowers from the graves. Vivian tells me they were mainly freesias because they had a very nice smell. And we looked for children's graves, being horrified at the thought that there were little babies in there. And the best part, we'd stand precariously close to the edge of the cliffs. It was all very exciting. Fortunately, Vivian's parents were usually at work or absent when this happened. They served up yummy food at Vivian's place too. So I regularly told my mum I had been invited to dinner. And I just turned up at the Vivian tells me that my parents always made sure she visited us for Christmas, but she probably just wanted to see what sort of stuff Santa Claus had left me compared to the measure wit she got. So we progressed through primary school and then entered the illustrious Dover Heights Domestic Science Girls High School. Can you imagine that in the middle of the 50s, society was still determined to turn the so-called fairer sex, but certainly the lesser sex, into contented and competent housewives?
Yes, we can imagine.
Yeah, the servants of the husbands and the producers and carers of subsequent children, preferably boy children, of course. There was even a miniature flat within this school where we could practice making beds and dusting and Indeed, there was also a laundry where we could delight in making our own starch.
For our husband's collars.
And as we scrubbed the dirty shirt collars, we could relish in the thought of one future hubby who might inhabit such shirts.
We supplied the shirts.
Neither Vivian nor I were very competent or content, nor the slightest bit interested. Anyway, we went into different classes the first day of high school. For whatever reason, I don't know. Why, probably no one else did either. It was possibly alphabetical because that's the way they judged ability in those days, especially girls' ability. Vivian had the courage to bring to school, inconspicuous of course in a brown bag, paper bag, a book on sexual activity. Heavens know where she got it from.
Dad!
We would study it in a special hidey hole we had at school. We'd discovered this hidey hole where we could do wicked things. We were intrigued, repulsed, and highly amused by some of the antics and the illustrations in this book, but I think we hoped we would never ever have to practice it. I played hockey, Vivian played basketball, and so we continued on till we sat for the Leaving Certificate in 1960, which we passed with no flying colours. I quite enjoyed school because I was a bit of a cheeky ratbag and didn't take anything too seriously. I don't know what Vivian thought about those 5 years. We'll have to ask her. She probably did because she was a law-abiding good girl and a very keen student. Off to Sydney Teachers College, where once again Vivian and I were at the same place but in different sections. We had such fun at Teachers College, well I certainly did. I can't remember what we learnt about teaching methods or anything much at all, but we did have a great time. It was very memorable. Kathy had entered the picture by now. She had come to Teachers College from her school, Randwick High, another high school, after she'd finished the Leaving Certificate. She, Vivian and I became close friends. Most of our socialising at this time was done as members of the WEA. That stood for Workers' Educational Association. This was a club which contained various subgroups which you could attend according to your interests. We three joined the drama group, which we attended every Sunday night, and we did whatever you do as a member of a drama group. We did book readings, put on plays, as well as holding picnics, parties, camping and other social activities. So I'd actually shared primary school, high school and Teachers College with Vivian. We had become qualified teachers after 2 years at college. We then worked at various schools for 3 years, which was a requirement by the education department. We were bonded for 3 years, just what it felt like too. Then, after 3 years teaching in these schools, the three of us left Australia to travel the big wide world for 2 years. That's it for the moment. You'll see me back explaining another part, another section. Another patchwork. Another bit of the patchwork, Kathy. One well said, yes. Thank you.
This because I've noticed with the filming that with just that red light, it's really not very. Is that better, Graham? Can you see my face? Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so as Vivian said, I was born when she was 5.5, and she's given me this time from when she was 8 to 18, which means that I was 3 at the beginning. I can't remember much about that till I was 13. I also went to Rosebery Public School, and I remember walking, like where we were living at 43 McDonald Street in Vaucluse, on the edge of this 300-foot drop cliff. Our parents went off to work and we had to walk up 3 different streets, like along up a hill and along past the cemetery, scary, and then to the bus stop. And I remember holding Viv's hand, and just I can still feel the feeling of Viv's, like the older sister, sort of holding my hand and giving me that sense of security, because it was scary doing that. And I was asthmatic and it was often windy, so there was that to hold on to. And our dog Toby often came with us and would be at the bus stop and wait till we got on the bus. And then when we came home, Toby was at the bus stop again, waiting for us. He just knew. And one time he actually walked all the way down to Rose Bay Public School and suddenly appeared in the playground. It was amazing. Viv was really good. We went to some ballet classes. Well, it's not really ballet, like classical. It was from a system called the Golden Visa School of Dance, and a woman called Emmy Tausig ran the classes, and somebody called Lainey Rushour. I don't know who that was, but I know the
teacher of the kindergarten.
She did what?
She was the teacher of the kindergarten we went to.
Oh, okay. And a man called Dolly.
He was a pianist in the ballet class.
Yeah, right, okay.
Dolesco.
Yeah. So Dolly was a large man, and he would play. And Viv was very good at dancing, and I wasn't very good. And Viv was really supple, so she could do, like, from standing, she could do a back bend and go all the way down, and even put her head through. It was really impressive.
I'd like to see you do that now, please.
I also remember playing after school. You were often over there, Georgina, and we did doctors and nurses. I had to have lots of injections with a stick, and teachers, and I was the student who was stupid and didn't know anything because I was the younger one. Viv, one of the things that always impressed me when I was young was that Vivian was very good at saving the best food till last, whereas the best food was always, and then I'd sit and look at her plate, all those yummy things, and she can still eat them. In 1956, my mother's sister, husband and daughter came to Australia. They got out during the Hungarian Revolution, so my aunt was there the whole time for the Holocaust and had terrible experiences and was quite a nervous person. But I just remember going over and visiting. We moved to Vaucluse. They lived in our house that we used to live in. I used to go over and do dress-ups and with my big cousin. She's a year and a half older than me, like 2 years. Right. And then we moved to Middle Cove. And that was when I was 11. It was 16 or something. And what I remember, that was that in your last year of school, halfway through? And that was terrible, because there we were, we'd moved all the way up to the North Shore, and Viv had to catch 2 buses to get back to Dover Heights to do her leaving certificate, and I felt for her, because I thought that was mean of our parents to do it right then, do it in 6 months' time. Vivian had the bigger blue room, and I had the smaller yellow room. And we had this funny battle axe block that we lived in, and all the neighbours were all around. And coming to there from living on the edge of a cliff with ocean views and sitting on the back fence and having the spray coming up into your face, to this place where there were neighbours all around. It was a very different experience, and I remember my dad saying constantly, "Shh! What will the neighbours think?" Which he never said before. And Viv and Dad, they had a few fights now and then. So yeah, that's where I'm up to.
Moving on to the next age. So I'm not sure if she has anything to add. But the next age is 18 to 23, which is 1961 to 1966. And on the list is Kathy and Georgina, but I'm not sure if Georgina may have run on and said what she wanted to say about that age. But Kathy.
I'm sorry I'm going to bore you with some of this, because George has already said a lot of it. But I've written it out and I'm going to read it.
Yay!
Otherwise I'll get myself totally confused. Georgina and I met at Sydney Teachers College when we were 17. She introduced me to Vivian, who was also studying at the same teachers' college but in a different section. All of us had scholarships, and thus we were bonded to the Department of Education for 3 years. Although we had studied to be, that's George and I, had studied to be primary school teachers, we were then placed in an infant school when we were let out of teachers' college for our first appointment, and we had not a clue as to what we would do. Vivian's first school was Bargala Heights, and I think, Viv, am I right, you did get infants?
Yes, I trained in
She actually trained him, was the letter teacher in infants class. How good is that?
which I didn't enjoy, and got and changed to primary.
Well, I also applied to go and teach in the country. They asked you where you wanted to go. I applied to go to the country, and my first post was in Alexandria Public School. So that's in the middle of the city. And so somebody had a great sense of humour at the Department of Education. So during their high school years, George and Vivian had made a pact to travel overseas at some point together. As we became friends, I was also invited to join on a working holiday. A threesome can be difficult. So in our youthful innocence, we sat down one day to list all our good and bad points to make sure we got along.
Wow.
This was our list.
You have to
I hope this is not too boring, but I have a copy of it.
You
That's impressive.
I've lost my place now. I'll let you be the judge, as if whether we have improved in the last 58 minutes. So the first one was, and it's headed Miss Dingle. That's Georgina. Number 1A, extravagance. These are her faults, by the way. Not able to see another's point of view, intolerance, inability to accept criticism, sarcasm, in brackets, sometimes carried to extreme, carelessness, self-opinionated. Miss Royston, these are her faults. Louder? Do I need to put it up a bit higher?
Get nearer.
A bit closer. Too touchy. Too touchy. Occasional lack of sense of humour. Not able to see another's point of view. That is, in brackets, stubborn. Sulkiness. Inability to accept defeat gracefully. Miserliness. Using people. Individualistic to extreme. Too serious. Pained. Martyred expression on countenance. And then comes myself, and that's me. Tardiness. Slight improvement. Still working on it. Lapses in thoughtfulness, for example, taking too long in the shower. Unawareness of present situation. Crankiness in the morning has not changed. Unwarranted abnegation, which leads one to believe that it is false. I think that means us too self-deprecating. I think that's what it means. Inability to let free with any emotion that might be interpreted as sloppy. Now here's her good traits. Miss Dingle, Georgina, generous, not given to long periods of sulking, frank, kind, entertaining, contagious enthusiasm. Miss Selfin, moi, thoughtful when she thinks, generous, material and unmaterial instances, kind, very tolerant, good fun and enjoyable company. Now we get to the star of the show. Vivian is thoughtful, helpful, kind, courageous and capable.
Did you write them about each other or did you write them about yourselves?
No, we wrote them about each other. Together, we concocted all this together. And then we collated it. It must have been awfully painful. And I don't know why we thought that was going to improve us at all. I don't know.
Sure. You're self-aware.
Not that mature, we were 22. Okay. Once our 3 years' work was completed, we set off on our working holiday at age 22 on the ship Elenis. Greek food, lots of it, and 5 weeks in which to savour it. We rolled off that ship in Italy. Vivian was not the pretzel you see before you now. Not only had we gained weight, but we had packed far too much luggage. Suitcases didn't have wheels in those days. Vivian and Georgina's parents had bought them kangaroo fur overcoats, which were very bulky. I was lucky because my parents couldn't afford one. We had to pay a porter with our meagre savings to get us off that ship. Well, we had a good time on the ship, flirting, eating, sunbaking, swimming, playing cards, singing, writing letters home and waiting for replies, and above all attending dances and other diversions in the evenings.
Learning Greek.
Pardon?
Learning Greek.
That's right, we went to Greek classes, we went to dance classes. We did a few cerebral things too. One of the challenges in the evening was to avoid a young man wanting to walk us back to our cabin and then attempting not to leave. We did a bit of travelling and skiing before we arrived in London and found accommodation in Earl's Court. Then we went to find a teaching job. We were told the only work available was in the East End of London. We believed them. The 3 of us shared a small apartment and sallied forth by tube to wherever we were sent. Teaching was a ghastly experience, as the behaviour of the children was atrocious. We went sightseeing in London on the weekends, and the school holidays we travelled to neighbouring countries. Sorry. At some point, the 3 of us parted company. The 2 of us parted company with Vivian, who then proceeded to travel with another friend. The intention was to meet up again and travel together, but it didn't work out in the pre-mobile phone and internet age. We relied on poste restante to communicate. That is, we left letters and messages at various post offices for each other. Towards the end of our 2 years away, we got a message from Vivian that she was in Israel, living on a kibbutz, and we should come and join her. She organised a place for us on a different kibbutz to hers, where we worked for a month. What an experience. After some sightseeing in Israel, we flew home, and Vivian stayed on in Israel for a while longer and surprised us as she returned with a fiancé. I think that's all that bit. I think the next bit comes later, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Sorry, Aya.
Beautiful.
After travelling around Europe, teaching, working as an au pair in Vienna, where incidentally I first tried to get a job as an English teacher in a kindergarten school, and they told me that my English was too English and it would confuse the children because the previous teacher had been American. I then went and worked in a youth hostel over the winter in Grindelwald in Switzerland. I then headed to Israel, and after meeting my cousin Susie and her family, I headed to a kibbutz with a large swimming pool, that's very important for me, to work and to learn Hebrew on what's called an ulpan. After only 6 weeks in Israel on kibbutz, all foreign nationals were advised to leave as a war was imminent and there was no guarantee that the airport would remain open. My parents sent me telegrams begging me to leave, and I had an identity crisis. I couldn't decide whether I was Australian or Jewish, and which was more important to me. I felt that, yes, I was Australian, but if I left Israel in her time of need, that I'd never have the moral right to come back. So I decided to stay. It's very difficult. Can't see you at all. Talking down.
Stage life. Yeah.
It's like
Bright lights.
Yeah.
You can see me. Yeah, you look great.
It was a 6-day war, 1967, and Israel wiped out the Egyptian Air Force on the ground, and the news came out over Israel radio, and they said, no, this is not possible. Can you wait till the BBC comes on at 10 p.m? We believe the BBC. And of course, at 10 p.m, BBC announced that that was true, so then they accepted that they had actually won the war. I taught English on that kibbutz and then moved to Haifa, and there I met my ex-husband Moshe. It was at a dance that was held for Israelis to meet new immigrants, and he was a great rock and roller, and I loved rock and rolling, and that's how we met. We became engaged, we returned to Australia, and discovered that my parents were divorcing. I tried to postpone the wedding because Moshe's parents weren't able to come to Australia. It was too expensive for them, but my parents could fly to Israel. But I was unsuccessful, and the wedding went ahead.
The wedding was what?
No, you're in 24 to 30.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Which is about to come up right now. 1968 to 1977. We're going to have Wendy, and then Vivian, and then Catherine.
And Michelle. The wedding.
So, at the end of 1967, I just finished year 12, and my parents supported me to go to Israel on something called Academy for all young Jewish people to experience Israel, and Viv was there on this kibbutz. So I got there and she came, and like the war had just been, everybody in Israel was really high, because they'd survived. And Viv came to Jerusalem. We were staying in a hotel there, and she took me around Jerusalem, and it was so beautiful. It really had a big impact on me. And then Viv and I went on a trip to Europe on a boat. Again, Viv went on a boat to Europe. So I actually told Viv about this recently, and she said she doesn't remember anything of it, but I certainly do. So we took this boat over and went to Italy and hitched around Italy. I remember one time we were picked up by this guy who was delivering spaghetti. And he had this tiny little van, and it had all these squiggles on it like spaghetti in lots of different colours. And he took us, it was very nice actually, he took us to a little hotel, we got registered in there, and then he got a friend and they invited us to go out, it was in Florence, to go out for dinner, and they took us right up high in Florence, and we could look down over the city. It was beautiful. And at some point after that, or was it after that I suppose, we got married, yeah? Like after you went back to Australia? Yeah, so the wedding. It was very fraught at that time because of what was going on with our parents. And I think partly because of that I can't really remember much about it. You just block out things when it's a fraught time. And I remember Moish being not what I thought Viv, not someone who I thought Viv would connect with because he was very different from her and from Australian guys. He was very flamboyant. He was very, broody. And then Liat came along.
Yay!
Yay! So 1971. No, because I'm 68 to 77. Does it matter? Liat is here. And when Liat was, I don't know how old, just quite young, I came and looked after Liat. And in Bondi at their flat where there was this tennis court next door, and all day it was a thwop, thwop, thwop. And Vivian had a thing about purple and she painted all the furniture purple. Things you remember. And I remember going down the street with Liat in a pram or a stroller or something and pretending she was my baby. Because people would come up and say, oh, what a lovely baby. And I said, thank you. She was a lovely baby. And I remember I was making bottles of milk for her and used to get stoned a bit with my boyfriend Philip, and then I'd get really paranoid. I shouldn't tell people this. that Liat wasn't breathing. I'd get creepy. Look at her and make sure that she was still breathing. No, I'm sure you never heard that at the time.
She's angry, she's fierce now.
Let it all out.
I survived. Wendy getting
She's
stoned.
still breathing. So that's that theory.
Yeah.
I taught English as a second language. I found that when we were in London, I was teaching a class where a lot of children that were playing up, and I realised that it was mainly because they couldn't speak English, but I realised that being an English speaker and being a teacher was not enough really to teach English as a second language. So when I came back to Australia, I did another course to become qualified to teach English as a second language. So I taught that, and Moshe and I bought a brand new apartment in Bondi that Wendy mentioned. And the marriage was pretty rocky. Liat was born in 1971 because I stupidly thought that if you have a child, that'll bond you together. But little did I know that any problems that you have only become much bigger problems when you have a child. And the following year we divorced. She was 14 months and suddenly I was a single parent.
Shorter section, you'll be pleased to know. So this is about our kids growing up together. We attended each other's weddings, and then came the children. Georgina had her first son, and then the three of us were pregnant at roughly the same time. We continued to play tennis.
6 weeks apart.
Hang on a sec, don't preempt.
Sorry.
Coming up. We continue to play tennis with our husbands on the weekends in our glorious tent-like maternity wear. I say play in inverted commas as we mostly stood on the court and waited for the ball to come to us. When the children were born 6 weeks apart, we continued to play tennis even though each baby in turn screamed when their mother got on the court. The children celebrated each other's birthdays. We went to the beach, we had picnics, and when Vivian visited my place, Liat and Aaron were very big on Play-Doh. That's it, folks. That's all I can remember.
And my mum asked me to talk about the years we immigrated to Israel, and I was 6. And she asked me to talk about her, but I was 6. So
Better than 3.
I was trying to think, as a mother, I've been thinking about what it's like to leave your country and your family and your culture and your friends and your language and immigrate to the other side of the world when there's no internet and no mobile phones and no anything, alone with your 6-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah, Mum, talking to you. So I'm thinking about what that was like, and I'm thinking that took a lot of courage. That took a lot of courage to go by yourself with a 6-year-old to Israel. And we moved to an absorption center, which is where immigrants from all over the world come to Israel to start their new life in the land of milk and honey. And it's not milk and honey. And people came from pretty wealthy places like South Africa, where they had servants, or people, South America, or us from Australia, and we're all living in this square block building with a big dining hall where we'd have to line up for our food, and we had a room no bigger than this for the two of us for 6 months. We had 2 little army cots with grey blankets. We could barely get between the 2 of the beds, and that was it. That was our home from Bondi to this in Haifa. And I'd go to bed at 7, and then my mum would sit there in the dark with headphones listening to the BBC for hours till it was her bedtime. So that took courage.
That was because if you were a single parent, you were regarded as a couple. So you were only entitled to 1 room. While if you were married, then you had 2 rooms, one for the parents and one for the children.
Yeah, so single parenthood in the 70s in Israel was kind of like, what do you mean you haven't got a husband and a family? So, And then the next thing I wanted to sort of acknowledge in your biography, since I am talking about you and not my story, was you found work in 2 of the major universities in Haifa, the University of Haifa and the Technion, and teaching English, which was, I think that took a lot of fortitude and hard work to find work as a single parent at a time alone in Israel. And I remember you working 3 jobs when I was at school. You had 3 different jobs, and that took fortitude and just stamina. And then you had the most amazing career change suddenly, without any study or prior knowledge or anything. My mum became a journalist, working for the ABC in Australia and being the only English-speaking reporter for Israel Radio in the north of Israel. Just like that. That took sheer chutzpah. So you're courageous, you have tenacity and fighting power and lots of chutzpah. And those are qualities I like to think I've inherited. And I clearly remember, because again, no mobile phones, no internet, no nothing. I remember having to sometimes come home from school, especially during the Lebanon War in 1982, and I wouldn't know where my mum was, and I'd literally have to turn on the radio and wait for the 1 o'clock news to hear, sure enough, Vivian Royston reporting from Beirut, or Vivian Royston reporting from Jenin, or I literally didn't know where you were sometimes until I heard on the radio where she was. And now, as a mom, making lunchboxes, I listen to a lot of Radio National ABC. And of course, as you're well aware, there is a war back in the Middle East. And I often hear reports from Israel, different reporters reporting, from Jerusalem or from wherever, Gaza, for ABC News. And I'm like, well, one day somewhere there was someone making lunchboxes, listening to the radio and hearing my mom from reporting for the ABC from Israel. And I'm just like, gosh, that's
It's quite remarkable because behind that person reporting is a whole person with a story that we're hearing. So, yeah, that was very inspiring to me that you did that, and I think that's my bit.
Beautiful.
He brought the ship into Haifa Port for your birthday. A huge aircraft carrier on the 20th of December.
That was the support ship.
You know,
it was his support ship, but
it's a storytelling moment.
But he had told me that he wouldn't be back till January, and then suddenly, on my birthday, I'd been up in Lebanon. I'd baked a cake and I'd take it up to Lebanon to celebrate. And I remember the leader of the negotiations. I offered him a piece and he wasn't allowed to have any until somebody else tasted it to make sure that it
wasn't poison.
or something. And then I came back to Haifa, filed my story, got home, and there was a message on the answering machine from Phil saying, "I'm in port, contact me." And it turned out that he had convinced the Navy that he needed to bring the ship into Haifa for the men for Christmas. And it was really to be there for my birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, this day, 20th of December.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Time went by, and then I heard news that my father wasn't well. Wendy rang me and told me that Dad was asking for me, and so I flew back to Australia, but I didn't make it in time. And my plane ticket didn't allow me to fly back for another 6 weeks. So I came up north to see Wendy and met a young man called Andy, who was living on a community. And I decided that I would go back to Israel. Liat still had 18 months of school, and then we would come back to Australia. It was push and pull. I thought, what am I on the other side of the world, and my mother's still in Australia. In Israel, it was no longer a left-wing government, and there was a lot of drugs in school, and try and tell a 16-year-old, don't mix with those people. It's like talking to a wall. So I thought the only way was to bring her out. And so we came back to Australia, and I moved up to the community in Barinbar with Andy. Very different world.
And so that was in about 1988, 89. So she moved on to the community in Barinbar, Kurrajong. Harry and I lived on the community further up. So there was two communities together in this little valley in Barinbar. We're all very young, enthusiastic and bushy-tailed, and with lots of young children. Typical hippie community, really. Living smack bang into the middle of it all. So yeah, there was plenty going on. It was a busy time. We were all community building. There were community gardens. We did, there was roadworks and plenty of activities. Lots of children raging around. Plenty of parties. We also did a lot of camping to the beach, and always went to Woodford at Christmas time, as parts of the community did. We all had a good time. She was there for the building of the bridge at the community, which was engineered and put together by everybody, and just still standing, so that was a major feat. And she helped Andy build her house, the house there. In fact, you'd bought a share in the community too as well, didn't you? Kurrajong. So Vivian was there for 5 years, and then she built another beautiful house out the other side of Mooloolaba, Mandala, and moved out there. But so we've been friends since then. It was about 35 years ago.
Your daughter.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. One memorable occasion was, well, Vivian had her share of having to look after these kids a lot. They just ranged around. She had to feed and water them as they went from house to house and that. But at one stage, Harry and my son were overseas, and I had to go and have an operation in hospital. So Vivian had to look after our daughter Lily, who was about 5 at the time, for a week or so, and of course she had got chicken pox as well, looking after her, but we all survived that. And what else went on? It's all a bit of a blur, really.
Yeah.
A lot of, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was good time was had by all, really. But we're still there and we're still standing. So that was that for the 5 years or so.
Thanks.
Down to Adelaide to live because there wasn't a Steiner High School here, and I had started a Steiner High School in Mooloolaba with some other people. It's very hard to make it go up. What do you think?
I think it's that one.
Thank you. I was involved in starting the Steiner School, and I don't remember you being around at that time. Viv, I don't think I smoked that much dope at that time. Maybe it's just age. I do remember that Viv joined the Greens and got very involved, and she joined the Byron Greens and became one of the booth coordinators. So every time there's an election, there are people who actually organise the different booths and the people who will hand out harder votes at that time. So can you turn it side on, Leah? Otherwise the whole film won't work. Thank you. So I think that went on for many, many years, didn't it? How long did you do that for?
What, with the Greens?
The booth coordination.
Oh, many years, I can't remember.
I think mainly in Ocean Shores, yeah?
No, on before. No, I was booth coordinator for the whole northern region when I was at Tweed Byron Greens.
Right. As I say, I wasn't around very much, and I'm not quite sure why I'm up here
What doesn't matter?
at this time. So
It doesn't matter because we're running out of time.
Addition you wanted to add
After leaving Andy, I bought 5 acres just outside of Mooloolaba. I designed a beautiful octagonal house looking out to Wollumban. And a few years later, I bought a house in New Brighton and then moved between the two. It was always difficult remembering what I had in which fridge.
So now, I'm talking about 2004. The 3 of us had recently celebrated our 60th birthdays, and so we decided we would spread our wings once more and indulge in a cruise around the Caribbean islands. I think we know them better as the West Indies. So we did all this in February 2004. We flew to Florida via Mexico and New Orleans. First thing we were taught, it's not New Orleans, it's New Orleans. So we love just walking up and saying, we've been to New Orleans. Funny people. We just love New Orleans. The jazz sellers, the wandering musicians, the whole atmosphere of the place. We explored all the touristy places, walked along the levee, which was supposed to protect New Orleans from the floodwaters of the Mississippi, and it's often failed miserably. We even I enjoyed my mint julep on the veranda of a typical southern mansion, which had operated as a sugar plantation. We boarded our luxury cruise ship in Tampa and then set sail. We visited 8 vastly different Caribbean islands. All these islands were colonised by different European powers. The architecture, the ambience, the attitudes of the people all reflected the characteristics of whichever European country it was that was the coloniser. We explored each island, thoroughly indulged in local food, bought local souvenirs, sampled the local beverages, and went on numerous tours and tried to meet and chat with as many locals as possible. We swam with dolphins, we shared the ocean with numerous stingrays, we snorkeled and admired pristine coral and exotically coloured fish. Life on board was just as much fun. We joined in every activity was on offer. We attended numerous floor shows and in fact even participated in one after Vivian hurriedly taught Kathy and me some flamboyant dancing movements. We entered all the sport competitions. In fact, Vivian came second in the ship's table tennis competition. We were very good at winning trivia, bingo, quoits, shuffleboard and mini golf. We were such athletes then. Vivian attended the singles and solo club each day, and we would get vivid descriptions of this one and that one, and soon learned that her opinions were completely based on a person's dancing proficiency. Vivian has always been an enthusiastic dancer. She knows all the moves and obviously enjoys expressing herself through the music. I have to say that she does look very professional when she dances.
Yes.
She attended the captain's dinner, dressed to the nines, and enjoyed mingling with the other passengers, those who enjoyed such things. Kathy and I didn't go. We didn't have the right gear. Gowns, we weren't gown people. After disembarking, we flew to Cuba, where we stayed for some days. What an experience it was visiting Cuba. And Vivian particularly enjoyed it, as she could tango, salsa, cha-cha and rumba to her heart's content. She could keep up with the locals and did indeed dance just like a local. We all had a wonderful time. It was very special to be able to celebrate our 60th birthdays with special friends.
Lovely.
I started to think about what I wanted to say about my aunt. The first thing that came to my mind was photos. Vivian was the one who took the photos of me when I was heavily pregnant with both my children. She offered to take a whole series of photos. We went to the beach. I put on as many nice things as I could think to put on, posed and took things off. And she made me look as glamorous as it's possible for a very heavily pregnant woman to look in the middle of summer, which was hot and bothered, but she did a good job of making me look as good as I could. She was also our official wedding photographer. Took some beautiful photos. It's really bright. That's good. And just incidentally took this gorgeous photo once when we were at the river together of me with my little girl. She was about 2 at the time, poking her head between my legs. It's on my wall. It's one of my favourites of us. So she's, the skills she demonstrated in journalism are being put to good use in my family. Thinking of photos, I went back through my albums to try and find some photos of us to sort of jog my memories about different things. And as I started putting them together, I was struck by the vast number of family photos. And some of you may have seen when we were having dinner now, the family got up and had a little photo here. So many beautiful group shots. And I've actually, you won't be able to see it right now, but this, I'm going to give this to Vivian. I put some together in a little collage, a little walk down memory lane of family photos, family group photos. So that was lovely just to see all of those celebrations through the years, birthdays and other events that we've celebrated as a family. The other thing I noticed in looking through photos was the vast number of photos of Vivian holding babies. As my own children, or very many of my own children, and of Jonathan, and just of random babies, like a friend of mine at the New Brighton Market that we see quite frequently, and she's a mother of twins and is a single mother, and very often would really like a spare pair of hands, free hand. And Vivian's frequently to be found holding a baby there. Anytime there's a baby, apparently she's in Vivian's arms. I'm very lucky to have several grandparents living nearby, so my childcare needs are usually well catered for, but every now and again we find ourselves stuck and in urgent need of a childcare solution, and quite often Vivian steps up in those moments as the extra sort of surrogate grandparent and looks after my little girl, and she always enjoys spending time with her Bibi. My children call her Bibi, sort of auntie, I guess. I was also asked to talk about camping trips together, and I looked for some photos of those. I found one photo of you having breakfast camping together in 2012. My family does a lot of camping, and on occasion we've had this sort of a wider family camping trips that Vivian's joined us on. And I couldn't remember any particular anecdotes. I think we camped, we swam, we ate, we played board games. I couldn't remember anything in particular. But I do know that we would go to national parks, and she would camp in the back of her car on a mattress with the fly screen, the mozzie net, to cover up the open boot. And I was recently going to be somewhere just for a night on my own, and I thought I might try that same solution, use our car and have a mozzie net. And I very quickly decided it was going to be too bright, I was going to be uncomfortable, I was going to feel really vulnerable, and I thought, gosh, I'm very impressed actually that in her 60s and 70s she's comfortable sleeping with that setup, because I wasn't. I think I'm spoiled with my caravan. I was like, no. I think the patchwork of Vivian's life is not complete without mention of Muffy. I thought it was such a great idea when Vivian suggested to me.
She was going to get a dog a couple of years ago, and he's obviously such a fantastic companion for her.
Anecdotes, but it's obviously a continuation of this long love with dance. And so I knew Vivian from the tango community here. She was at everything. I think we were both sort of crazy about tango for a while, and the community was quite big, so there were all sorts of occasions, and she would be there from things on sidewalks, outside cafes, through to glamorous balls and kind of lots of tango events at people's houses, and she was just always up for it. And we also caught up in Buenos Aires. We happened to be over there at the same time and enjoyed going out to some milongas together and going and checking out local market. So yeah, and it's been lovely to have connections over all sorts of things in the years since, lots of different entwinings.
Alison.
Vivian through the choir originally. I think he came to my choir and also Sanctuary. And Vivian actually videoed our wedding back in 2009, which was very kind of her. But Vivian's asked me to say something about the art journaling. So in recent years, how old am I now? 68. For the last 8 years I've been teaching art journaling. This is my new career. And Vivian's been coming since the beginning, I think, haven't you? And Vivian was quite insecure to start with about doing artwork, and that fitted in really well because I was really insecure about teaching it. So we were a bit the same there. And I've seen her grow in confidence. And Vivian has a very good eye, I think. Well, she's been a photographer, so that's not surprising, but I think it's a natural thing some people have. She has a good eye for colour and composition. And so she's going to show you a couple of the pages that she likes, that she's been doing. in the last few years, I guess.
No, I'm just going to show the most recent one because it's the easiest way.
Okay. I'll hold it and you say something about it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Wow.
It's all about aging, I think, isn't it?
Yes. It's aging.
Beautiful.
Do you want to read what it says? Anyway.
It's beautiful.
Oh, there's another one.
Oh, that one's aging.
That one was about paying attention to paying attention to nature. That's one of my favourites. So, as you can see, that was thinking outside the box.
Oh, that was influenced by Klimt.
Yeah.
My favourite artist.
That's Vivian's head on the Klimt painting.
Close to the mic.
It's all right.
Oh,
I
that
love
was
this one. I love this one.
This was supposed to be the lull moment, but I find it very difficult to be quiet and calm. So it was like me trying to hold down everything.
Yeah, but I just love the colours and the composition in that one.
This was facing your shadow. And that we might be trying to escape from our shadow.
That's the last one. Oh, there's another one.
Oh, that was
It's facing the shadow as well.
yeah, facing the shadow again, inspired by Van Gogh.
And Munch.
Oh,
And Munch.
oh yeah.
So there you go.
I love Bali, and once while visiting I met a wonderful silversmith called Made and his daughter. They allowed me to build a small octagon on their land facing Mount Agung. I bought silver jewellery from them, also did a silver course, and sold it at Nimbin and Byron markets for 25 years.
Wow.
And our mothers were like second or third cousins. So for me, our family was very, very small because of the Holocaust. And so Vivian's family was like really my main family in Australia on my mother's line. So even though we're kind of third or fourth cousins, it's just been really close. And
My cousin. My cousin and your sister, my two cousins.
Yes, yes, yes. And so even though I didn't really have much to do with Vivian till much later in my life, which is the part I'm going to talk about, I think maybe, you know, kind of in my 30s or 40s, because we didn't really see much of each other growing up. But then when I came back to Australia, we just started, I sort of lived in Melbourne in her mother's place and then started coming up here. And one of the things that I think one of her amazing qualities is actually creating beautiful homes. And I had the fortune of living in almost all her houses, of staying in all her houses, and often when I come up here, Vivian invites me to stay. So I remember staying at Mandala actually, and she was in the middle in this beautiful octagonal house, and I always was in awe of how you created these incredible homes, and they weren't ordinary. They were like really detailed and very artistic and very unusual. And I remember staying with you at Mandala, and you were in the middle of creating the Bali house. And I was also amazed that she was sitting there communicating with Bali with plans and drawings, and I was going, how on earth can you build a house like this? You know, and you did. And then I also stayed in Bali, in her house in Bali. I had the fortune of staying there. So
Another octagon.
Another octagon house. So incredibly amazing design, and I think Vivian, your attention to detail, the qualities of being very fastidious and attention to detail for me has been very inspiring, because I'm not so much like that. And talking about creating beautiful homes, I think Vivian, your sense of beauty, like every time I would stay here, there'd be beautiful orchids and beautiful things, and like the art journaling shows, she was really into beauty. And that was the other thing too. I'm trying to buy a home, but I've been trying to do that for many years, and Vivian's sort of been really trying to urging me and sort of showing me things up here, and has given me a lot of advice in that area. But one day it'll happen.
I hope so, sure.
What else did I want to say about that? Yeah, and I think just that sense of beauty, and for me, Vivian really also captures that European side of our family, the Viennese, your interest in artists and culture and music, and also I really appreciated, like Vivian often used to come to Sydney and be very connected to the Jewish culture and her Jewish history, and I sort of so appreciated you kind of always being in touch with my mum many, many times, and because our family has been so small. And I think for me, her art journaling, when I come up here now and you show me your art journals, I think the beauty, and I think you've really found an expression for also working through emotions and things in your life through the art journaling. And don't you think that's like a really beautiful art expression that is really beautiful? So,
thanks, Sally.
Thank you.
You'll be able to go and have dessert now.
No, not quite yet, almost.
Oh, no, okay, you're done. Yeah, Michelle, you totally stole my thunder. I was going to talk about houses too. I'm a photographer, and I've just designed and built my own house as well.
Can you
so
explain to people who you are, how you're connected to me?
Okay, I'm Wendy's partner. And Wendy is, as you will know, Vivian's sister. So I've known Vivian since 2007 when Wendy and I got together. So yeah, what I really appreciate is your attention to detail and the sort of artistic expression of your buildings and the space. And as a photographer, it's impossible to look at the world without seeing the sort of structural beauty of the images that cross our paths. So yeah, congratulations, you've done a great job, and being 80 is amazing. I'm sort of trailing along a little bit behind you, but
You'll never catch up.
I had to get there. That's okay, you can lead the way. I'm following. So okay, thanks. So have a wonderful future wherever it takes you.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you everyone. I've so enjoyed this. I've just learnt so many things about a very close member of my family who I speak to on a regular basis, and I didn't know half of those stories about her past, so that was fabulous. We just have two final things before you get to have cake and champagne. We have Catherine reading a poem, and then two poems.
She's gone.
She's gone. Okay, we don't have Catherine. We have Jonathan playing a song. Yay! Yay! Vivian's grandson, in case you don't know.
He's been playing cello and then guitar, and this is a guitar that I bought for him.
Yeah. It needs miking.
Song, I don't know. Here we go, I guess. It's not very, I was first planning to say something about my Omi, but I didn't, but I have a song, I have a song instead, a guitar piece instead, I guess. Sorry. So that's one. Messed it up twice at the very end, but I can play one more.
Yes, please.
Yes. Alright, hopefully I got this one a little bit better.